there is such value in our communities coming together, and whether that's at the local, state, national level, for communities and citizens to be involved in politics and in government is important. So thank you for giving your time tonight. We are just really excited to host this event for Congressman Burgess. As we begin, I'd like to introduce our Lewisville High School Navy, JROTC. They will present the colors, and our students are Cadet Lieutenant Commander Pang Bang, Cadet Lieutenant Junior Grade Seth Southwell, Cadet Lieutenant Junior Grade David Hernandez, Cadet Lieutenant Junior Grade Jonathan Salas, and then we'll have Cadet Lieutenant Junior Grade Sophia Bazzelli, and she will lead our Pledge of Allegiance to the U.S. and Texas flags.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you.
Thank you. You can be seated. All right, well, I failed to introduce myself, and so I apologize. My name is Tricia Sheffield, and I'm president of the Lewisville ISD Board of Trustees. We also have some additional elected officials in the room tonight. I'd like to recognize them. And when I call your name, if you would please stand and kind of give a wave so that we can recognize you. First, we have R. Neil Ferguson. He's a councilman here for the city of Lewisville. We have Ebony Wilson, and she is here with State Representative Ron Simmons. We have some additional Lewisville ISD trustees. We have Catherine Sells, Jenny Cosnick, and Secretary Christy Hassett. Have I missed anyone else? Any other elected officials? Okay, thank you. All right, now on to the real reason you're here. So about Dr. Burgess. After spending nearly 3 decades practicing medicine in North Texas, Congressman Michael Burgess was first elected to Congress in 2002 and was re-elected most recently in November 2014. Dr. Burgess currently represents the majority of Denton County and parts of Tarrant and Dallas counties. Dr. Burgess serves on the prestigious House Energy and Commerce Committee, and for the 114th Congress, he is the chairman of the Subcommittee on Commerce, Manufacturing, and Trade. He also serves as a member of the Health and Oversight and Investigation Subcommittees. In addition, he is a member of the Rules Committee and the Helsinki Commission. In 2009, Dr. Burgess founded and currently serves as co-chair of the Congressional Health Caucus. If you would please join me in welcoming him, Dr. Burgess.
Well, thank you for being here this evening. Great turnout in Lewisville. Always good to come to Lewisville. Lewisville was my home for a number of years where I practiced medicine. And as the poet Robert Frost once said, home is where when you have to go there, they have to take you in. So I'm back, Councilman. You had to take me in. I want to spend actually just the first few minutes with a couple of housekeeping details. This is, of course, an election year. This is a political year. This is not a political event. This is an event, an open forum where your opportunity to be sure that I've heard what you have to say, because we'll address each other face to face. My comments are not going to be political, not because I fear going in that direction, but because that's not the purpose of this event. I will become political if provoked, and with your opportunity to ask questions, that's where we perhaps will have that opportunity. Also, I need to just take a moment and thank our two members from the Lewisville Police Force who are here, Carlos Flores and Officer Doug Lee. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us. Please convey my special thanks to Chief Curvo for his attention, and he is always a good and gracious partner whenever we do anything within the city of Lewisville. The other housekeeping detail on the screen is the perimeter of the 26th district, so you can see the cities listed there, and I keep getting corrected as I do these events that, hey, you left off Prosper. Providence Village. I think we've got all of the cities out there now. We've been corrected a number of times, but we learned during the process. So those are the cities that are comprised, that make up the 26th district. Obviously, a city like Fort Worth, I do not have the entirety of the city of Fort Worth, but a portion of that political subdivision. It's a great district. I've lived here essentially all my life. My parents lived here when I was very, very young, and most of my education, my adult life, my practice life, certainly my political life has been spent here in the 26th district. This event is being live streamed on YouTube, and for that reason, I tell you that for your own protection. Anything that you say here is, in fact, on the public record. And when we actually get to the questions and answers, the reason I have the microphone set up over there is there's a camera set up somewhere there, and it will record our interaction. And it is, again, it's being live streamed while we actually have the discussion. And then, if you've got a friend or acquaintance who says, oh, I can't believe I missed the whole 4 hours of Dr. Burgess's town hall, they can go to my website and actually watch the whole 4 hours. So tell them never fear, it's there for you. But there's another purpose served there. Anything that, again, we say here is on the record. I have had occasion in the past where someone has videotaped and then edited the videotape rather selectively, but the official record will be the archived version that's on the website. So if there's any discussion that emanates from what was said or not said here, that will be the official arbiter. I wanted, if I could, just to kind of cover 3 areas quickly with you because they seem to be topics of general interest. As I've done, I actually started an event on Saturday with more of an energy-focused event, and then 3 open forum town halls. This is the 3rd of those open forums. Sort of the things that have come up and topics of general interest. Obviously, national security is one of the things that is top front and center in everyone's mind. Jobs in the economy continues to be, although we are relatively blessed in this area with a strong economy, jobs in the economy continues to be something that captivates a lot of attention. And then finally, I mean, you know, I don't do a meeting like this where I'll talk about healthcare, and I'll kind of wrap up with my observations on healthcare, and then the floor is yours. And I'll be happy to listen as long as you want to go on whatever topic you want to discuss. On the national security front, you know, not yesterday morning, I guess it was yesterday morning where that Roman Catholic priest was hurt or killed in his church, giving mass. Once again, just underscoring the danger that is, the threat that is faced around the world by ISIS. I will tell you, when I came to office, right before the men and equipment went over the berms, men and women and equipment went over the berms from Kuwait into Iraq, and obviously the conflict in Iraq and Afghanistan comprised the lion's share of the first part of my congressional service. The authorization for the use of military force in Afghanistan and Iraq actually passed before I started in Congress. Afghanistan passed in 2001, right after the attacks on 9/11. The Iraq authorization for the use of military force was passed in the fall of 2002, before I was elected to office. The reason I bring that up is because there continues to be conflict in the Middle East. ISIS has grown in stature over the last several years, and as those conflicts have become increasingly important, not just to us, but to our allies and our partners. The difficulty that I have right now is there is no authorization for use of military force, particularly within the country of Syria, and yet many of our military actions that are called upon to be delivered are being delivered in the country of Syria. I do think that, yes, there needs to be a clear direction, there needs to be a clear articulation of the strategy, the goals, the aspirations, and the endpoints for these conflicts that cannot just be allowed to go on indefinitely as an open-ended structure. But that's essentially what is occurring with those authorizations for use of military force that are now well over a decade old. It's my belief that Congress, well, first the President needs to, again, articulate that strategy and what the goals, aspirations, and endpoints are, and then Congress needs to debate that. Congress needs to authorize or provide a new authorization for use of military force. Actually, the two previous ones should sunset. That should not just continue indefinitely. We should have that debate. Let it be a tough vote. Let it be one of those things. It may be career-ending or career-defining for a member of Congress. There's probably no more important vote we take as a member of Congress. But in my opinion, we've allowed that, and we've advocated that responsibility for the last several years. Yet, put a fair amount of the share of the blame on the administration, but there is also a responsibility that Congress has to do this. As a consequence, I have actually voted, as noted by President Sheffield, I'm on the Rules Committee, and I actually voted differently than other Republicans on the Rules Committee because I do believe we should allow that amendment to come to the floor to allow the debate on the authorization for use of military force, sunset the two that are in current existence, and then provide whatever the direction is going forward. Be very clear about the rules of engagement. Be very clear about what the expectations are. Be very clear what the consequences are for people who continue to attack our people and our allies. There are conditions under Article 5 of NATO where we could be asked to respond. I don't know what France's response to the two latest attacks, the one in Nice and the one in Normandy. I don't know what the French response is going to be, but we could have obligations under Article 5 of NATO. We need to be prepared for that. Secondly, moving on to the jobs and the economy. And again, we're blessed to live in Texas. You know, you wake up every morning and it's grand. You don't live somewhere else, you live here. And the economy here has, you know, with President Obama, his State of the Union message talks about the jobs that have been created during his administration. Always in the back of my mind, you know what, if you back out the jobs that were created in Texas, you actually are at a net negative number. So, Mr. President, I feel like you should start your State of the Union message by singing "Texas Our Texas." You know, but that's my opinion. But we do. We have a great economy in the area. It's always been so. I lived here in the late 1980s. Things were pretty tough. I remember having patients who, when the Safeway closed down all of their stores here, reassigned all the meat cutters in their meat department in those stores. I had patients whose husbands were transferred off to Nebraska or Illinois or somewhere else. They had homes in Flower Mound that they could not sell. I mean, stop and think about that for a minute. A house you can't sell in Flower Mound, are you crazy? Those houses don't stay on the market for 4 hours now. But there was a time where it was actually a long wait to try to unload a house in Flower Mound. But it's different now. The economy is great. We are blessed to live in this area. One of the reasons, of course, is Texas is an energy-producing state. In 2008, when energy prices were so high, right before the recession started, we kind of were insulated from that because of those high energy prices. Now, the energy prices came down, and they came down kind of a chaotic fashion a couple of years ago, and that hurt the energy sector, but the economy of the state diversified enough that we actually weathered that as well. And I'll tell you what, yes, I'm a citizen of Texas, but I'm a citizen of the United States. If the low energy prices help other parts of our country, I'm okay with that. At the same time, we do want to be able to sell our Texas products on world markets. So last December, the 40-year ban on the export of crude oil was lifted. And Texas, all at once, was a direct competitor with OPEC. And although the price is still in the $43, $45 a barrel range, our crude is going overseas. Our crude is going to directly compete with those countries that historically we have sent our dollars and they've sent their tariff to us. So the situation has changed, and OPEC is no longer going to have that stranglehold they had over the economy. The other thing, and of course, I said I'm not going to be political, and I'm not, but obviously there's a presidential election going on in November. Will things change as a result of that election? And I don't know. Every prediction I've made about this political year has been wrong. It will probably continue to be wrong. But in November, there will be a relatively significant vote. Here, people refer to it as a binary choice. I believe that there does need to be fundamental tax reform in this country. My predecessor was heavily involved in the flat tax. I have picked up and carried that mantle, changed the parameters of what Congressman Army had proposed, and made the flat tax a voluntary proposition. But I still feel very strongly that would be a reasonable thing for our country to do. Other people feel differently. They think, oh my gosh, we ought to have extra retail sales tax, the fair tax. We ought to have a value-added tax, the VAT tax. There does need to be some type of fundamental tax reform. The optimistic part of it says that because of this election, tax reform will be on the ballot, even though you won't see a line that says tax reform. But the consequences of the election, the national referendum could point to hey, we got to do something with our tax system. It's not working. It's not great for the economy. It is advantaging some people and disadvantaging others. And that's not the way it should be. It should be neutral as far as how it treats our citizens. So one of the things that I would ask you to perhaps consider looking at, there is a tax proposal that has been put forward. Kevin Brady, fellow Texan, chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, has actually worked a number of months listening sessions, listening not just to members of Congress, but listening to people around the country. And that tax proposal is at a website called better.gov. And I would encourage you to look at that. There are also proposals dealing with healthcare, national security, but primarily the tax code is I'm interested in your thoughts on that and what your feedback is on that. Because I do believe that as a consequence of the fall election, there may be the national will to begin to do something as far as fundamental tax reform. And then finally on healthcare, every ounce of restraint I have to not say, I told you so. I told you so. I told you this thing wasn't going to work. So, okay, here we are now. Insurance premiums are higher than they've ever been. Deductibles are higher than they've ever been. Sure, people who didn't have coverage before have it now, but at the same time, it's coming at great cost, putting great strain on the national expenditures. The expansion of the Medicaid system have caused significant stress in the federal budget. So what's going to happen next? Is it doubling down? Is it more of the same? Is it moving more to a market-based type of program? And again, I don't know the answer to that. I will tell you that in addition to tax reform on the ballot, I also see the future of healthcare on the ballot in November. So my ask of you is I encourage you to look at what the candidates say, to look at what's actually involved, what's on the table. I will tell you from locally, from what I'm hearing from you all, some of the fissures, some of the fractures that are occurring in the system as it was designed in 2010 and 2011 have begun to emerge. The insurance market, the availability of insurance is contracting. There's consolidation within the insurance market as patients, as people who provide health care. Generally, when the insurance company gets bigger and stronger, you don't. So I, for one, would like to see an end to the individual mandate. I think the finding of people who don't carry health insurance is a system that is doomed to failure. I would like to see that suspended relatively quickly to allow there to be free and open competition in the insurance market. What's wrong with having an insurance company actually sell us something we want, not something that we're required to buy because the government says so? So those are the things that are kind of I'm hearing from you and generally around the district. I'm going to stop there. We've got a microphone, we've got a camera, we got time. So floor is yours. Thank you, 26th District, for being here. Thank you, City of Lewisville, for having us.
Good evening, Congressman, Doctor. Sorry, my wingman here. Congressman, 2 years ago I was here and I talked about...
Yeah, you never share the camera with a kid or a dog, you know? They always steal the show.
Exactly.
Everyone's paying attention to your dog. I feel like you know.
Exactly. He used to have, his vest used to say cure Alzheimer's. And people say to me, does that dog cure Alzheimer's? And I said, no, he cures stupidity. Stay close. Anyway, Congressman, I was just several years ago, shortly after my diagnosis with early onset Alzheimer's. And, you know, I was probably at the lowest point of my life, obviously. But as I told you at the time, I had worked on helping the Catholic Church in Cuba to organize Pope Benedict's visit. And so then I was invited to attend, or to be a patient at a clinic in Cuba called Sedan. I was there for 5 weeks in 2012. The treatment they gave me was, in fact, they did every, I had gotten my diagnosis at the Mayo Clinic, they conducted every test exactly the same that the Mayo Clinic did. And then they shaved my head, they drilled 6 holes into my skull, and they gave me daily injections of adult stem cells and human growth hormone. I left there feeling much better. I went back in 2014 for what they call a boost up. I was there earlier this year for another boost up. And just to give you some of the results, since 2012. When I was first diagnosed, my IQ, which had been 145, had dropped to 93. Since then, it has climbed back up to 112. And the 3 key areas, which I'm sure you're familiar with, pardon us while we doctors have this conversation. My executive functioning, I went up 2 percentiles since in 4 years. My verbal abstract reasoning, I've gone up 4 percentiles. And my perceptual reasoning, I've gone up 2 percentiles. The only thing they haven't helped is my short-term memory, and I really don't care because I enjoy having waitresses chase me out the door to pay for my meal. So you know, the reason I'm here, you know, Congressman, is, and I know you, when you were a practicing doctor, you had gone to Cuba, and believe me, their medical system leaves a lot to be desired. But I think the technology and what they're doing, you know, those 5 weeks I spent in 2012 cost me $10,600 for medicine, food, hotel rooms, and everything. And I think we could do that here. Ironically, I have a good friend whose mother is in a memory care center with Alzheimer's, and he donates. He was donating regularly to the Alzheimer's Association. When I came back, he wanted to take me there. He wanted them to meet me and talk to me, and they refused. And he threatened them to take away the money he was donating them, and they still refused to talk to me, so he doesn't donate to them anymore. So you know, there's certainly something to be said. In the 4 years, I have helped 86 families take a loved one down to Sedan for treatment. So, no, I covered all my points. Thank you. But again, Congressman, you know, please consider it. You're the healthcare caucus chairman. It's an amazing technology, not technology, but an amazing, and I know I sound like I'm babbling idiot, I know, but believe me, I'm a lot smarter than I was 4 years ago. So, Congressman, thank you.
Yeah, I'm less smart than I was 4 years ago.
Thank you for being here. My question is kind of brief. What is your opinion of the Convention of States? Do you think it's going to be brought up in this next year, and do you think it will pass in the state of Texas?
Well, the Convention of States, or what's called the Article 5 Convention in the Constitution under Article 5, will actually be a function of the states. I mean, it would not be a function of something that would be passed by the House or the Senate. The convention would be convened by the states. Probably the closest example to an Article 5 convention that I can think of that's long before my time was repealing the Volstead Act, the prohibition, the constitutional amendment that started prohibition. Of course, prohibition was unpopular. States were getting to the point where they, in fact, were going to take matters into their own hands and repeal it. So the Congress got ahead of the curve and did repeal that amendment, and of course that rapidly passed the states because they were anxious to get that amendment repealed. My concerns on Article 5 Convention, just stating it as briefly as I can, is who's going to be James Madison? I don't know. And once you open that door, how do you control what happens on the other side? And I don't know the answer to that. Sure, people who talk about it, and I listen to Mark Levin too, and they're all very smart people, and I will give them every credit for thinking this thing. I just hope they have thought it through and that the situation is not get away from them. That's my concern. Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here, Congressman Burgess, and thanks to your officers for calling me to let me know that you were having this meeting today. My name is Vincent Zalaki. I'm on Social Security and Medicare. Now, as I've heard, Social Security is going to give an average raise to the benefits next year of about $12 and change. And that'll come out to about $150-odd. Medicare insurance is going to go up about $165. That gets taken out at the beginning of the year, and we get a little bit back, but not the whole thing, by the end of 12 months. What can be done about this? This is ridiculous. We've paid into the system. We've worked all our lives, and we've got this constant shell game where, or at least that's what it looks like now, well, we're going to give you this, but we're going to take more of this back. What can be done about this?
Well, as you recall, at the beginning of President Bush's second term, he did talk about major reform of Social Security. He was not successful in getting that done. As a consequence, what you're describing is cost of living adjustment, which is calculation based on a formula that's done by law. We're fortunate. The inflation rate has been low, but as a consequence of that, your cost of living adjustment, which doesn't take into account the cost of medicine, actually is much lower than what your expenditures currently are. Is there any way to restructure that cost of living formula? Sure, there is. The other thing that you're describing with your Medicare Part B premiums, Medicare Part B premiums, Medicare is now, 50 years old this summer. When Medicare Part B was first enacted by law, the beneficiaries paid 50% of the expenses of Part B. The General Treasury, the General Revenue paid 50%. That was changed, I don't really remember what year, probably the 1970s, such that beneficiaries only had to cover 25% of the actual Part B expenditures, the balance is made up by the Treasury. Could that formula be changed again? And the answer is yes, it could be. Obviously, it would require an act of Congress to do that. I will tell you there's some difficulty, inherent difficulty in doing that because of the $19 trillion debt that's kind of staring at you on the other side of the ledger sheet. So therein is the inherent difficulty. I don't know that what remains in this 6 months of this calendar year, the remainder of this Congress. I don't know that I can tell you to expect anything that is different as far as your cost of living adjustment. There are a variety of proposals out there. The difficulty is, and you correctly point out, you pay into the system, but the benefits are not entirely dependent on the dollars you paid in. They're actually dependent on federal law. And that is what President Bush tried to change in 2005, but he was greatly criticized for tampering with the Social Security system, and as a consequence, it never got done. The downside from a Social Security beneficiary standpoint is that of course, you know, Congress has borrowed a lot of money from the trust fund. That money is being paid back, the debt is being monetized, and that adds to the national debt, so that's all in play right now. But when all of those IOUs are monetized, all that money is paid back. When the trust fund is exhausted, and that will happen, I don't know when, 2022, 2027, depends on who you read. When the trust fund is exhausted, there will be a profound effect on what beneficiaries receive in Social Security, because under current law, what is paid out to beneficiaries, it's a pay-as-you-go system, and it cannot pay out. Social Security cannot spend in a deficit. Even though other parts of the budget have spent in a deficit and used Social Security to cover that deficit, Social Security itself cannot run a deficit. So that is a consequence. It's going to reduce benefits whatever year that trust fund is exhausted. That is why I believe, and again, this is difficult to do, and it's difficult to muster the political will to do it, because people get nervous when you start talking about altering the Social Security system. But again, I think President Bush was correct when he talked about the ability of the Social Security, someone paid into Social Security to be able to control part of their account and have part of their account that they control, not the government, and as a consequence have those benefits assured that they would not go away when someone is on Social Security, pays in all their life. If they fall over dead at age 67, what happens to that money? Well, there's a spousal benefit that's sharply reduced. The balance of it just goes away. It is not there for their heirs and assigns. But President Bush had proposed actually there would be a heritable amount of money that a person would accumulate during their lifetime. Again, it didn't, as much favorability that I thought he should be able to get with that, he didn't. And as a consequence, it didn't get changed. So people could teach schools and ask me, when are we going to get rid of the government pension offset? I don't know. I think it'll take a major reform in Social Security. I told you, I think health care reform is on the ballot in November. I think tax reform is on the ballot in November. I got to tell you, in all honesty, I don't think Social Security reform is on the ballot in November. I thought it becomes a political hill that becomes very difficult to climb. Yes, sir.
Congressman, I want to thank you for taking time to talk to a blue-blooded liberal like myself. My first question here is, I have severe mental health issues as well as physical health issues, and trying to find health care, thankfully I'm under 26, so I'm able to stay on my parents' plan until I turn 26. However, we can't afford the Affordable Care Act plan, which is, it's a marketplace thing, I understand, but what I don't understand is why we can't get Congress to go to a system more like Canada or France or the Netherlands or all these great countries where nobody has to go without health care and you don't pay $10,000 to have a baby. You have a baby and it's free because your health care is paid for through your taxes. That's my first question.
Well, a Canadian system, and when all of the discussion was going on when President Obama was first talking about what eventually became the Affordable Care Act, there were a lot of people who talked about, hey, why not a Canadian system? Now, we just heard from the gentleman who's concerned about his Social Security things. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid are items that are off the federal budget. That is, the money is paid out regardless of whether or not there's any money in the bank, any cash in the till to pay the bills. Canada has a system where they do cover everyone, but it is on budget. So this is one of the things that's not talked about very much, but under the Canadian system, when the money is spent, the money is spent. And as a consequence, if your knee goes out in October and the knee replacement needs to happen then. There is no money for, and like insert, there is a reserve fund for things like having a baby, but for something that is relatively elective, like joint replacement, there's no cash in the till for that. So it's postponed until the next year. And the problem with that is the people end up on waiting lists, and that causes a great deal of consternation. Now, Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit has made great cash off of rich Canadians coming down and saying, I don't want to wait till next year. My hip hurts today, I want it fixed today, and they'll be happy to take care of it. But do understand there is a difference in the way the two systems are financed. Would that be a good thing for us to go to an on-budget system to just cover all the bills? Maybe, but it also could be disruptive in other ways. And so just, I offer that to you right now, but is that something I'm in favor of? No, it's not. But at the same time, I think we need to work within the constraints of the current system and make it work better. I think there's some market influences that we could bring back to bear. I think getting rid of the individual mandate and getting insurance companies to actually compete for your business and compete with a product, I think that is a better way to go about it. We'll probably disagree on that. The Bernie Sanders approach is not something I would endorse. But the Canadian system, remember, that's on budget. So that's why they're waiting lists in Canada.
My second question regards student loans and the federal government. We need to do something about the student loan debt crisis in this country. I am a student. I'm going to graduate with lots of student loan debt through the federal government, through the federal grant loans and whatnot. I get as many Pell Grants as I can, but that only covers so much. I have to take out loans to cover the rest. What is your plan to maybe decrease the interest rate, decrease the, what are we going to do about the student debt crisis that we have in this country?
Well, there was a bill passed probably 2 summers ago that did decrease the interest rate. Probably not as much as you wanted it to decrease, but it did decrease the interest rate and consolidated it, I think, at 6.25%. My observation of the problem is that more federal money that goes into post-secondary education, the more expensive it becomes. And I really do think there are other approaches that should be taken, and just simply layering more federal money into that system. Again, it hasn't worked so great in the last 10 years. Maybe there are other approaches that could be taken. So perhaps part of the answer is, what do you do about student debt? Don't borrow so much money. What do you do about going to college? There are lower cost options. We're very fortunate in this area. We've got North Texas Community College. We've got Tarrant County Community College. Someone can take the first 2 years, or in some cases even 4 years of their degree. Yeah, live at home. I know it's not appealing. It's more fun to live in the dorm than live the college life. But there are trade-offs that can be made. I don't know that the correct answer is to look at the federal taxpayer and say, bail us out of this. Be careful what you ask for. With a free education that, for example, Senator Sanders has proposed, when the government's able to say, the education is yours for the asking, but they also may tell you what that education is going to be. And again, there's a lot of people in the country who would feel that's not a good idea.
Third and final question is, how do you feel about making the minimum wage into a living wage at $15 an hour so that people who, because somebody has to make the burgers full-time at McDonald's. It can't just be a bunch of 15-year-olds you're constantly circling in and out. Somebody has to be the manager, somebody has to do this, somebody has to do that. So $7.15 an hour is not enough to live on. It's not enough to feed your family. It's not enough to pay all the bills and the expenses you have to have and still be able to, eat and live. So what do we do about that instead, or do we just make it a living wage at $15 an hour?
Well, there are some parts of the country that have done that, and certainly they should have the freedom to do so. I actually don't think that is a federal responsibility to layer that obligation on every business in the country. But I think, for example, up in Seattle, they say everybody's going to earn $15 to live on. I'm glad it works for them. We'll check you later and see how it's working out. I love going to the airport at the Bergstrom Airport in Austin, Texas, because the Schlotzsky's there is entirely kiosk. I don't have to talk to anybody. It's like that rent-a-car commercial where I don't have to talk to anybody in the aisle unless I don't want. I can order my Schlotzsky's through a kiosk. I never have to interact with a person. Yes, there is someone who hands it to me at the end of the line, but that's one paid employee versus 10 or 15. Maybe that's the way of the future. If there is the risk, as you run the minimum wage up, you're harming entry-level employment. And again, what is the correct balance there? I'm not sure, but I do know if you farm entry level employment to enough of a degree, then people never enter. They don't have the on-ramp into gainful employment. And that, I think, is fundamentally a bad idea.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Congressman.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. They're totally opposite, but bear with me here. In 2015, Texas was listed as not only having the highest rate of uninsured, but also having more uninsured people than any other state, including California, about 5.5 million. But if you look at your voting record, and you stated earlier that I'm telling you so, Obamacare, this, that, and other, but February 3rd, 2015, you voted for a repeal of Obamacare. January 28, 2015, you voted for a repeal of Obamacare. May 16, 2013, voted for a repeal of Obamacare. January 3rd, 2013, you co-sponsored a repeal of Obamacare. January 11, 2012, voted to repeal Obamacare. October 13, 2011, you amended Obamacare to not include abortion coverage, which it already did include. And March 3rd, 2011, you voted to repeal funding for state health benefit exchanges. And not to mention, you voted against Obamacare, even though it was still signed into law on March 21st, 2010. So my question is, with all of these repeal votes of Obamacare, what is the alternative? What is the Republican plan to replace it? Because say, for instance, you're successful in repealing. What is your plan to replace it?
Well, thank you, Matt. And I actually wrote a book on this. It was published in 2010. Still available on Amazon. Titled Doctor in the House. First 10 chapters are all whining because they didn't include me in any discussions while they created this monstrosity. The last 2 chapters are the forward-looking part on what could have been, what should have been. And quite honestly, we're at a situation now where the availability of marketplace insurance may be sharply curtailed January 1st. When Cross talking about a 60% premium increase, I'm not sure the State Commissioner of Insurance is going to go along with that. Do they accommodate the commissioner, or do they leave the state? Certainly, United Healthcare has said we're no longer providing marketplace plans. I do want you to know that even though I vociferously have opposed all aspects of the Affordable Care Act consistently since it was first enacted, when it came time at the end of 2013, the beginning of 2014, members of Congress, as you're probably aware, you've probably read in the newspapers, the House members and Senate members said, well, wait a minute, we don't like us not to go into this, so let's create a special deal for members of Congress, House and Senate. I didn't do that. I bought a bronze plan in the exchange, in the Texas Federal Fallback Exchange. Texas didn't have a state exchange. Most expensive insurance I've ever had in my life. Premium went up 25% the next year. I'm used to high deductibles. I had a high deductible health plan, health savings account. That's actually would be my preference. Not right for everyone, and to be sure, we still need safety net programs. But as far as someone in their working years, from 26 to 65, I think a health savings account is a very powerful way to accumulate dollars that are directed to your health care that you control. Somebody else doesn't control. You have to call when you come to California, to get a medicine approved, you control those dollars. They're coming out of your savings account. That would have been my preference. And when we had hearings that were, the rails were, the thing was on the rails to pass this thing. But we had some hearings along the way, and in those hearings, when I had the town halls in 2009, and they were enormous town hall meetings, something like 2,000 people would show up 2,000 people showed up over in Flower Mound. I mean, these were big, a lot of interest in these meetings. But what were people telling me? They said, don't mess up what we have, please. And if you're going to do anything at all, can you help us with cost? So whatever happened was kind of the opposite of those two requests. The system as it existed, with all of the difficulties inherently involved, did get messed up. And some people who had stuff, myself, had high deductible health plan and health savings account, no longer could have that. Didn't meet the essential health benefits mandated within the Affordable Care Act by the administration, so I had to buy a much more expensive policy. But I did want you to know that, yeah, I didn't like Obamacare. I voted against it every time I got a chance, but I did purchase an unsubsidized marketplace account when, or a marketplace insurance policy when it came time. I felt it wasn't right for me to go to the DC exchange like a lot of members of Congress did. It was a subsidized program. If people in the individual market were suffering here at home, and I need to suffer along with them. I didn't like it, but I think it gave me a perspective on what people are having to deal with, who, whether they're subsidized or not, whether they receive an advanced premium tax credit for their purchase of their insurance or not. I mean, this healthcare has become much more expensive in whatever has emerged on the other side of this. And I think, my personal opinion is, I think individual mandate is damaging. I think the removal of some sensible market forces are also damaging. So the president himself, in July of 2011, we were having a big fight over the debt limit, and they remember that summer. It was pretty tense. So the president said, we gotta raise the borrowing authority of the United States of America. And Republicans had just been back in the majority of the House of Representatives, and we ain't gonna do it. So we were having to stand on it. And the president brought us all down to the White House, all the Republicans. He had the Democrats down the next day. He threw to the White House, and he told us that we had to raise the debt because that's just what we had to do. And they said, but I'll be happy to take a couple of questions on any subject. So he allowed 3 questions. One of the questions was on health care and the expense that people were concerned about. And he said, that's exactly why I passed the Affordable Care Act. I wanted to get control of the expense. And he told us a story. He said, when I was running for president, I got a rash on my back. He said, it didn't bother me too much, but Michelle didn't like it, so I went to the doctor and gave me some stuff to put on it. I put it on there, didn't really help. It was a $5 copay, so I got it refilled. But then I was on the campaign trail, and I didn't have a prescription, didn't have my copay card. So I went to a pharmacy, and through the miracle of an electronic prescription transfer, the pharmacist got the prescription, bagged it up, handed it to me, and said that'll be $450. And you can almost just see the mind's eye of the president making this statement. He said, I looked at that pharmacist and I said, this rash is not that bad. Well, that's exactly right, Mr. President. You responded to a market signal that said, yeah, use this stuff, it really isn't working. If it's $5, I'll take all you got. If it's $450, count me out. That is the power of putting the patient in charge of some of their dollars and some of their decisions. So I like the health savings account model. I've introduced HR, this year it's HR 1196. I've introduced to other Congresses where it's had different numbers. This basically would expand health savings accounts. Again, we're talking about people in their working years, generally healthy. These are the folks who are now bearing the very onerous premiums. They're looking at it and saying, I got to pay all this money, and yet when I go to the emergency room, my copay and my co-insurance and my out-of-pocket expenses are higher and higher and higher. I've got coverage, but I can't get care. And that's the beef that most people have with this. I would prefer more of a market-based system that would include health savings accounts. I would approach Medicaid entirely differently. I would approach Medicare differently, and I think the premium support system that Paul Ryan talked about in 2009 and 2010 makes a lot more sense because you put people back in charge of their care. Even the Commonwealth Foundation, as far left as those guys are, they looked at it and they said, if you have an activated patient, whatever, however you define that, someone who's in charge of the dollars, someone who's just interested in their care, the actual cost of care goes down. And I think that's the right way. If someone else is paying the bill, yeah, well, whatever. Pay the bill, I'm on my way. And the other thing is, you have so many people nowadays who think they have coverage. They get hurt, get sick, they go to a freestanding ER, and they get those surprise bills that are just out of this world. And no one tells them. No one tells them. There really ought to be transparency in those transactions, but no one tells them what they're signing up for when they go and sign up to get that care. So we're going to differ on this, and I get that, but I wanted you to have the benefit of my perspective. Yeah, it looks like I voted against a lot of things, but a lot of people I represent, if I don't vote no, they don't think I showed up that day.
Thank you.
Yes,
And my second question is this. You're a member of the Tea Party caucus, am I correct?
Well, the Tea Party caucus has sort of not reformed after last year, so I was a member of the previous Congress. Technically, I don't know if it's still a caucus or not.
And one of the goals of the Tea Party is to reduce taxation and to reduce the national debt, right? So I know quite a few people who work for defense contractors. And I know a lot of defense contractors that spend money like they're going out of style, they deliver defense projects late and over budget. As someone who is focused on reducing the national debt and also reducing, or at least not increasing taxes, what are you doing to reduce spending on these out-of-control defense budgets?
I got a couple of things I want to tell you. I referenced the debt limit vote. For me, it was a very difficult vote. There was a lot of people from my town halls in August of 2011. They were fairly harsh encounters because I wanted to increase the debt limit. But part of that deal was something called sequester. And the sequester cut every aspect of the discretionary budget by 2.3%. Now, the defense department, the defense contractors said, wait a minute, Secretary Gates cut us a bunch the Congress before, so now you're coming in with this 2.3% reduction, and that really is too harsh. But I don't disagree with you. When I look at the performance of the defense contract, yeah, I think there's room for improvement. Now, you ask specifically, what have I done? During the debate of the National Defense Authorization Act, there is an amendment that I've done with Barbara Lee from California, from Oakland, California. You know Barbara Lee. She and I are generally not on the same side of any issue, but this one we are. The Pentagon agreed in 1992 to an audit. It has never performed the audit. The amendment that we introduced that actually got incorporated into the bill last year, likely to get incorporated into the bill this year, says that by 2017 or 2018, the Pentagon must give us, not the audit, but must tell us when they expect to be able to comply with the requirement for an audit that they agreed to in 1992. So that is part of the entrenched bureaucracy of the Department of Defense. I don't disagree with you. There's a lot of room for improvement there.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing this up.
Thank you.
As a former military officer, I'm deeply concerned by recent legislation pushing women into frontline combat roles. And now legislation is passing which requires our daughters to register for the grant. The driving force behind this legislation seems to be political correctness, rather than actual studies of how this will impact our combat readiness or the unit's deployability, or common sense in some cases. Difficulties with pre-deployment pregnancy rates and military sexual assault also trouble me. Can you comment on these issues?
Yes, I can. First off, on the draft, I don't think that is the reason why that's in the National Defense Authorization Act that was passed the House and the Senate. If that was not incorporated in the House passed bill, I honestly don't expect that to survive. On the combat role, when I first ran, I had people ask me about the combat role for women in the armed services. I probably felt much the same way as you do. I will tell you, having made multiple trips to Iraq and Kuwait, Kuwait, basically, even though it was not the front line, it was still a combat. And obviously there were women in roles in both in full combat roles in the country of Iraq, but even in Kuwait. So my opinion of that may have changed somewhat over the years. And the job that's been turned in, I think, has been exemplary and probably not be in favor of trying to restrict that. Well, clearly there are some places where the degree of difficulty, and we've seen the reports in the newspapers about the people who either were or weren't able to compete with those performance tests. Just in general, eliminating limited combat would mean, in my opinion, that no one would serve equal way. And yet we have many certain women serving very capably. We did have many women serving capably in equal way, as well as we did basically on the front line of Iraq. My last trip there was August of 2011, and we flew with a C-130 from Mosul down to Basra. Pilots were two young men who did probably the best job flying C-130. It was the least uncomfortable C-130 trip that I ever took. So they did a great job. And I forgot what that first question was.
Well, I'm mostly concerned that it stays a volunteer.
Yeah.
Flight under volunteer conditions. I don't think it's right to craft under these conditions. I think, you know, I was pretty much a women's liver until I got into a mobility line to go to Saudi Arabia, and they handed me a card and it said, "Where would you like us to send your kids when you're mobilized tonight?" So that was kind of a wake-up call for me, that there are some issues there with women that I don't think we've really dealt with. And the sexual assault issue, I don't think that's being dealt with. I think a lot of us do know. Put on the carpet.
I actually did support the bill that said we would take that away from the commanders and put that more under the review board when those cases are made, because the commanders have in that special relationship where maybe they not control. I think we
Thank you, Congressman, for coming. I know it's not easy standing here. I don't know if you're in front of a firing squad or what, but we wouldn't be doing our jobs as citizens and your constituents if we didn't talk to you and challenge your voting record. Now, the thing about going almost last or halfway is my questions were answered, or sort of answered. I guess I need to buy your book, but I also wanted to make comments about the health care, because I also had a question. If you repeal the American Health Care Act, what do you replace it with? And I can stand here probably not being in the health profession, but as a two-time breast cancer survivor who also is the board president for an organization called the Bridge Breast Network. We provide free health insurance for women that have been diagnosed with breast cancer that don't have the funds to get insurance, or 1 in 5 women in Dallas County still, you know, they do not have health insurance even with half, or it's too expensive, or the deductibles, or they can't get care. So my main question is like the one that my colleague asked, what is going to be the alternative? Because I feel like the insurance companies need to be reviewed, and we need to look at that, because I know when I went for treatment, Benadryl into my chemo drip was thousands of dollars, and I just could not understand why, you know, and I had health insurance and was working every day, but it was still a challenge when the insurance covered something and I still received a bill for thousands of dollars. So I would just ask, as you're looking at whatever plan that you want to replace the American Health Care Act with, if it is replaced or repealed, that you also consider the other piece of that, which is the insurance companies. So that's just really a comment.
Well, let me just ask you, what is the oversight of insurance companies today under the Affordable Care Act?
I'm not sure that there is any, but I'm thinking that it needs to be some. So
There
I'm
is.
saying is, as you look at that, well, maybe I'm saying
But
there
we
should
should
be
fall
another
hard
part
and
of it.
power to the insurance companies.
Well, they don't need the
because
power.
They have to buy their product whether we like it or not.
Well, they don't need the power, so maybe that's something that you can look at. I volunteer to work on a citizens committee or whatever you need to do, because I'm all about action as well.
Well, there's the other aspects that you asked.
Yeah.
I want to tell you. I would favor what we call a catastrophic policy, or, you know, that limits coverage, let me cover on cash flow or health savings account what I have to cover. But yeah, I think that cover limits policy does need to be available. I would actually be okay with seeing that sold in a national market. You know, you have the Green Lizard who sells car insurance, Select Quote sells life insurance on radio. These are internet-based companies, basically, where the price has come down, the availability has gone up. Look, I don't want something that covers all the bells and whistles. I don't want something that covers everything. But if I get a motorcycle accident, if I get leukemia, I have run a big bill, I want to know about that stop loss coverage. So in my opinion, there should be a national market for that. And I think that product should be reasonably priced and readily available, just as we've seen in, again, the auto insurance market and the life insurance market. Term life insurance policies used to cost a lot more 15 years ago before Big Blue, Select Quote, all commercials you hear on the radio. Yeah, they have brought the prices down for term life insurance. Automobile insurance, it's no guess. 15 minutes to save 50% or more. And what about that?
But you have to have money to
I
do
want to have
that.
that national market.
You have to have resources.
This is, well, two things. The issue of pre-existing conditions, which became an issue during the discussion of the Affordable Care Act. Just so we all know and understand, the large group market, the multi-state market, the insurance companies that sell so-called ERISA plans that are federally regulated, there is no such thing as pre-existing conditions, because for the most part, once you get through the employment probationary period, whether it's 2 or 3 months, you're covered. Once you are an employee with full benefits, that coverage is extended. There is no exclusion for pre-existing conditions. It does happen, or did happen in the individual market, where the market was much narrower. There was a way to expand the individual market to provide some of those same protections that were built in to the large group market. But we never explored those. We never really investigated what would be required to do that. We just decided, the folks in charge decided this is what we're going to do. And the reason I bring that up is because when the Affordable Care Act first passed in 2010, and they recognized there's going to be a couple of years to ramp up before we get full benefits for people that actually occurred in 2014, there was a temporary program called the Federal Pre-Existing Insurance Pool, ESIP program. That had never existed before, but this was for people who had pre-existing conditions. They could buy insurance in this federal pre-existing pool. There was $5 billion that was appropriated for that. They decided about a year and 2 months into the program that we can't accept any more people because we're likely to run out of money. So the federal pre-existing pool actually was closed to people for about a year and a half before the full benefits of the Affordable Care Act kicked in. One of the questions I asked as the Supreme Court was considering the legality or the constitutionality of the law in 2012, how many people are in that federal pre-existing pool? How many, if they pull the rug out from under the Affordable Care Act tomorrow morning, how many people are we going to have to classify coverage for? That number was 65,000. In the whole country, 65,000. That was a manageable problem that it was manageable in a way that was not as disruptive to the rest of the country. And the other thing was, and Texas used to have a risk pool that they would run on a state basis. It was probably never funded as well as it should be because state funds are difficult. There was the possibility, and one of the things that I tried to do before the Affordable Care Act again, let's make money available to states who have a pre-existing program. The dollar figure was $25 billion. I know many people are going to say, oh my God, don't fit $25 billion. We ain't got it. Had to borrow from China. True enough, that $25 billion was a lot cheaper than the $1.8 trillion that we're looking at as the price tag of the Affordable Care Act. So expanding state risk pools, so the gentleman asked, what are some of the other options? That was one. Now, it'd be difficult to go back and recreate that because all of those were sunsetted in 2013 when the Affordable Care Act again. I don't know if there might be a way to recreate that. I think it would take some federal contribution to that. I don't think the state of Texas would necessarily be interested in carrying that load all by itself. And the other thing we always forget about in Texas, when people want to talk about the high numbers of uninsured individuals, remember insurance does not translate to coverage. And Texas does have a pretty robust safety net program within the hospitals, the so-called disproportionate share payments. I didn't really like that because they kind of covered the hospitals for their bad debt. When they ever came to me and said, hey doc, can we write you a check for the bills that didn't get paid this year? But nevertheless, there are the disproportionate share hospitals who do receive a significant amount of federal money we're taking care of people in Western Region.
Okay. And then my last question is with regards to the flat tax. I'm a CPA and taxes my life, so anytime I hear flat tax, of course I get nervous, or the IRS is going away, because you know that's how I make my money.
You should rejoice.
I should.
You should rejoice. You'll be able to help people manage their money in place for retirement, so that Social Security drop doesn't.
I also like representing them in front of the IRS, so I can make money off that too, but neither here nor there, you know, I'm okay with it going away. But when I hear flat tax, I just hear a percentage of maybe income that you pay in for tax. And I know that the tax code, even though it's convoluted, of course I love it, but I understand that a lot of the concessions that were put in there were to help people do certain things, like the mortgage interest deduction. We want you to go buy a house. The charitable contribution deduction, we want you to give money to charities. What happens to those types of concessions under a flat tax, and what are the exemptions going away, and how does a less than middle class family at the poverty level, a 10% payment for them is a whole lot different from a 10% payment from somebody that's high income?
Yeah, first off, after the bill that I introduced the past several years, they tried to take 40 people's story home. There was a pretty generous exemption, family exemption, so that, yes, that percentage of tax that is paid would not even kick in family four until it's in the top dollar figure, but it's in excess of $40,000 a year for a family of four. So they get a pretty generous exemption. And then if you calculate the percentage based on that exemption, it's obviously much lower than the 17% calls for in statute. The reason 17% was selected was historically the amount of revenue collected by the IRS to pay for the government was 18%. I thought the outside right belt a little bit, so 17% was the number selected. Actually, the bill that I introduced makes it voluntary because, yeah, in the perfect world, if you had a perfect flat tax, there would be no exemptions, there would be no exclusions. And the reason it appealed to me the first time I read about it in 1995, when Congressman Harvey wrote the book, was because I just went through what I call the Clinton paradox. 1993, he built the design of the same amount of money, almost at, to the penny. And when I looked at his effective rate of taxation, it was 19%, mine was 33%. And I thought, why is this? We should both be taxed at the same rate. That shouldn't have to jump through hoops and perhaps do something that skirts within legality in the tax code in order to achieve that same savings that the president achieved. So that was my sort of everyman. When Congressman Harvey wrote that, I thought that's exactly what I would like to see. What I tried to refine it was making it voluntary. And so if someone likes their look in the code, stay in the code, no problem. If someone wants to exempt themselves from that yearly seance they have with you at the CPA's office, if I want to be able to give up that shoebox full of receipts that I carry in every year, let me fill a postcard. Now, I would encourage you to look at the better.gov, the tax plan that Congressman Brady has proposed. He actually proposes job tax credit and homeownership and charitable collections that he referenced as deductions. The problem is every line of the tax code, and you know this, every line of the tax code has a constituency. And that there becomes the difficulty with fundamental tax reform. My bias is keep it simple. Chairman Brady has a little bit different idea, though he assured me you would still be able to fill out the famous postcards and then you still wouldn't have to do all of the extensive paperwork. Frank Burke, Scott Burns, the resident article in California News, the financial pages on Sundays, wrote an article right after I first took office. It talked about home mortgage deduction. It actually put things on paper. Home mortgage deduction in San Antonio, Texas, was probably cumulatively for the average taxpayer under $1,000 a year. If you just bought a starter castle in Santa Barbara, then you need that home mortgage deduction. You're counting on it. That's why when I put forward a flat tax, let people decide. If you're ready to make that decision to go into a flat tax arrangement, and you can't go in and out. Once you like to go in, there you are. But if someone has just purchased a starter castle out on the West Coast, They did that with, assuming that the federal government was not going to change the rules in the middle of the game. And I felt very strongly that we shouldn't be penalizing people for making economic decisions that we can encourage by the tax code. So that's why it's structured the way it is. Again, Chairman Grady's proposal is a little different from that, but I'd be glad to hear your thoughts on that after examining that proposal.
Okay, sounds good. I'll email you.
All right, thank you.
Respected Congressman, thanks for taking time to come here and talk with us. My name is Dr. Tejas Patel, and I'm representing a group of skilled, legal, law-abiding, tax-paying immigrants. I'm representing north of 75 people right now, and that is a small subset of over 10,000 people who are living in the congressional district. We are having singular focus to contribute in American system financially, politically, job market-wise, socially, and want to do everything possible that we can to make country like more prosperous. But we are having common problem that we are facing is we are having employment-based green card backlogs. So I will share with you like what is green card backlog by my personal example. So I was working with an employer in 2011 where he applied for my employment-based green card, and I'm having priority date. That means like the date where they have accepted my application in the system. I'm having priority date of like December 2011. And there were people who joined the company after me. They happened to born in countries like Pakistan, South Korea, and my company have processed their green card procedure like late 2012. But by the middle of 2013, they got everything approved, and in the next couple of years, they are going to become a citizen. So there is a fault in legal immigration system where they treat people based on, like their country of origin or country of birth, rather than their potential education and experience and like their willingness to contribute into the system. So like we are having a hope in early 2015. There is a bill called HR 213 has been introduced by Jason Chaffetz, who is Republican from Utah, and that is also having bipartisan support from House Immigration Subcommittee Ranking Member Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, who is Democrat from California, and Congressman Ron Labrador, who is Republican from Idaho. They are original co-sponsors. There are 59 co-sponsors so far. Out of that, 37 are Republican, 32 are Democrats. And out of all these congressmen who are supporting this bill that is intended to remove this country of birth restriction, and like make the system fair for everyone, where everybody will get equal opportunity based on their date of filing, not based on the country where they're born or country where they originate. So in Texas, there are just two people who have co-sponsored that bill. So I want to take your opinion about legal immigration system, the flaws that are there in today's time, what you are planning on doing to fix that. I also want to see what is your opinion about HR 213, and are you willing to co-sponsor that bill?
Well, to take the last part of your question first, and the short answer there is negative. Let me also say that if you don't think in your individual case that you're being treated fairly by CIS or Department of Labor, obviously, the Congressional Office, I stand ready to help you with an inquiry if that would be your preference to do so. But we can always, again, those are individual requests, not the legislative requirement or fix that Chairman Chaffetz has proposed. We're aware that I voted against that in the past. It is not likely to come up for a floor vote before the end of this year. What happens with immigration probably is to some degree dictated by what happens in November It could either be greater likelihood or lesser likelihood, depending upon a number of variables, some of which will happen with the ballot box. Now, one of the difficulties that is encountered is that people ask the cap 65,000 be lifted so that more people can be brought here. There is a difficulty with unemployment in this country still, although, again, as I referenced, we're relatively well here in North Texas. There are other parts of the country that are not, and as long as there are citizens, American citizens, who are still requiring jobs, probably don't favor increasing that cap until we straighten out our own house.
Actually, I agree with that, but HR 213, as you know, that is just intended to remove per country limitation for employment-based green cards. So you know, like, how immigration system works. There are 1 million green cards given to people all around the world to come and stay in the United States. And out of that 1 million, just 8% green cards or 80,000 green cards are given under employment-based category. So I'm not, like let's say, try to take your opinion about are you in for increasing number of green cards, number of H1, H1B, or L1B. Like, I'm here to just get your opinion about, like, let's say, what good or not good it will do by taking out birth country restriction on that employment-based immigration system.
Again, if you don't think it can be increased for every by the agency, we're prepared to help with that. I honestly don't think you'll see any activity on any immigration bill for the balance of President Obama's administration.
And I just want to clarify, it is not an individual case. There are 1.4 million people who are having same and similar situation like me. They are spread across the United States. They are forcefully, like, working for the companies where they have been contracts, like long-term commitments, who are basically sponsoring, like their visa. So basically, they are not having any kind of job mobility. It is a serious issue, like both parties, Republican and Democrat, it is election season. I'm following politics very closely. Everybody just want to, like, talk about illegal immigration, like how they will control it, okay, how they will take care of everybody, but nobody is taking care of legal immigrants who are present in the United States legally, doing high-paying jobs, contributing in tax revenue, okay, buying houses, paying property tax, doing everything possibly that they can do. Okay, so don't you think that either like Republican or Democratic parties should come forward and start like fixing that system rather than like just worry about their voting bank and just keep on talking about illegal immigration?
The issue is finding jobs for people who are citizens, and that really should take a priority.
So I just want to counter with that. So that is a statistic, and I can show you that report that every 100,000 jobs created for legal immigrants in this country, there are 187 jobs available, like other than the 100 jobs available in the United States where they can fill in people, like all across the United States. So there is nothing.
Unfortunately, then you have the headlines of you have the Senator Grassley's committee in January, where people with Walt Disney Corporation were required to train their foreign replacements who were here on visas. And as long as you have that situation, it just becomes politically, it becomes almost a bridge too far.
Yeah, we have tried to reach to Senator Grassley, okay, but he is not willing to even talk about this issue. So if we're not going to talk, then how are we going to solve the problem?
I'll look at HR 213. I wouldn't expect my opinion to change. I will tell you, I don't think anything's going to happen on the rest of this calendar year.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Dr. Burgess, nice to see you. I saw you in your previous capacity, bringing children into the world, so I appreciate what you've done there as well. I work for the mean people who make pharmaceuticals.
You work for who?
The mean people that make high-priced pharmaceuticals.
Oh, okay. You're a healthcare profiteer.
Yes, I am. We make things that help and save people's lives. There's always the options, right? My specialty, though, for the last 50 years has been my passion calling on the VA and the Department of Defense, Indian Health Services. When I speak to a young person who wants to go into healthcare, I tell them that the Department of Defense is really the last place they can practice medicine as they're taught versus how they're dictated. Because if you are in the Department of Defense and you believe that you have the best treatment for someone, you can get it for your patient. That's not always the case dealing with insurance plans. Now transfer that to the robust DoD healthcare benefit versus, and I'm sure you've heard this a lot of times, the VA healthcare benefit. For those of you that don't know, the Department of Defense has a very robust healthcare benefit. Just about every drug you want is available. And I'm not just saying drug because I sell drugs, but sometimes you need things to fix an issue. And that's not the same in the Department of Defense. And, excuse me, not the same in the VA. My question is, there's so many, obviously, more people in the VA. They're moral. They're elderly. They need certain things. Why is there this struggle to get the VA patient what they need versus when they were active or even retired and maintain their DoD benefit, they can get the products they need? That's my first question.
Because the formula even exists in the VA system. I'm not a big fan of formula. When Medicare Part B was discussed 10 years ago, there were people who said, hey, set it up like a VA, we use a formula. The problem is formula is very restrictive. And as you correctly pointed out, there are things that will not be available that might be available to someone who's just paying cash, someone who has insurance coverage, or as you point out, in the Department of Defense.
I mean, that, to me, you've done the job, you should have access to the best healthcare available. My opinion.
I don't disagree.
Okay.
I don't disagree.
Okay. And the last thing I want to bring up is a much more global issue that's important to me and important to my kids. And if you look at the content of the room, and that's everything going on now with race, Black Lives Matter versus Blue Lives Matter. I've been pulled over and had a gun pulled on me in Texas by a police officer, driving my car through an expensive neighborhood. I don't want my children to have to experience that. And it's all really, in my opinion, about talking. What are you prepared to do as our congressperson to help bridge that gap so that my kids truly can have the same experience as your kids?
But look, first off, okay, I'll confess. I was driving home a couple of Friday nights ago, coming from the airport up to Highway 380 where I live now, and on the tollway. And I may have been going in so close to the speed limit, but good grief, it was 11:30 at night on the tollway.
Okay.
And sure enough, I was going from bottom of the hill, lights come on. And I'll tell you, I mean, yeah, there's a little more nervousness on the part, and I'm sure the officer who was African American, by the way, I'm sure there's that nervousness on their part as well. I didn't want to stop on the tollway because I was, that's dangerous when that happens, so I drove a little farther and pulled off. He probably thought, what the heck was going on here? I stopped basically I didn't realize it was on a bridge that didn't have a shoulder, so he's on the loudspeaker, driving, pull down the next driveway and turn in. So I did. Probably in times past, I would have gotten out of my car and said, officer, what's the problem? Can I help you? I promise you this time I rolled down both windows and I put both hands on the steering wheel. Until he said, may I see your license and registration? I mean, that's just a fact of life. And so as a dad, I mean, both of us, my son was a little older, my daughter was a little older, but when you get pulled over, you make sure that all of your, any movement you make is understood by the officer. They have a responsibility to go home safely just as you do. We're in kind of a different time, but to tell you the truth, that night, the race roles were reversed, but still, do everything as instructed. I didn't get out of the car and say, do you know who I am? Yes, sir. Whatever you need to get us through this transaction safely. And let's just already give you a warning, which is still on the floorboard of my car. I'm going to look at it one day and probably going to do it again. But I don't know how how, because as a society, I don't know how we dial attention back. I mean, we live here, and Chief Kerbo in Lewisville, I mean, I think he does a wonderful job. I called him the day after the attacks occurred in Dallas. I mean, you can tell from the emotion in the man's voice how distraught he was over what had happened. I went down and met with Chief Brown on Saturday after he lost the officers. Goodness knows he had better things to do than devote an hour to a couple of members of Congress who wanted to get a briefing from him. But he did receive us down there at the police station while we were there. They went on lockdown because of the social media posting that indicated that there might be an attack on the Dallas Police Department. It's a pinch up, and I think all of us have a responsibility to dial back wherever we can. Because a member of Congress, does the rhetoric need to be like the fire on the floor of the House? Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe you can get away with it one day with something a little less elevated and a little more direct. The people who were on the streets of Dallas that night, I mean, yes, they were protesting, but the community policing that Dallas is employed, I mean, I think it's exemplary. I think it's an example for what the rest of the. I get frustrated too when I hear about these incidents that happen. Why in the world would that occur? I think Dallas does it right. I told Chief Brown, I have talked to him. In fact, he articulated a couple of needs that he had in the department in Dallas. Some of the restrictions on military equipment now going to police forces that occurred a couple of years ago actually have affected his ability to get things like body protection, which I think they should have. I got no problem if they got military grade gas out. If we've got them in surplus, those contractors that the other gentleman was criticizing, if they've oversupplied the military and they want to devolve some of that to our police department, I have no problem with that at all. One of his concerns was that someone who buys a firearm and has a laser pointer, he's still using iron sights, he would like better equipment. I got no problem with that. So I think there is a responsibility to help the police departments, but I think all of us have a responsibility within our families, within our communities. We need to dial back the rhetoric that ourselves and our children need to know, when an officer stops you, your primary obligation is to get home safely for the officer to get home safely. So you do everything up front and above board. Again, another time, I would hop on the car and said, officer, I'm a member of Congress, or I'm a doctor on the way to a delivery. Can I help you? I wouldn't do that. I just wouldn't do it. It's due to the risk. And it's the interest of the officers as well.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thanks for your turn. On the other issue of your day job.
Yes. Yes, sir.
I thank you for what you do. There is a lot of discussion on the problems with drug pricing. I don't know what is going to happen as far as any federal action on that. I'm one of those ones that recognizes there is a big difference between the cost, why Darapur costs what it does, and why Somali costs what it does. Darapur is price gouging, Somali is life-saving. Parkland Hospital in the 1970s, we knew we had hepatitis A, we knew we had hepatitis B, but there was this other stuff. And so someone called it non-A, non-B hepatitis, and someone got the right idea, called it hepatitis C. That was a disease that didn't even have a name when I was resident at Parkland Hospital. It's not a cure, not managed, but a cure.
Yes.
That is an enormous advance within basically one professional lifetime. Unbelievable. So I do not want to damage the innovative capability that this country has, and I recognize that responsibility of balancing the Darapur versus the Somali.
Yeah, I guess the other thing is that people don't realize that it's a requirement of the pharma code for drug companies to assist people who are in poverty. So our personal program is up to 4 times the poverty limit. It's $120,000, I think, for a family of 4. And we supplement if someone's got out of pocket. But that story, of course, is not told. That's just my personal issue. And but I think there's definitely a good middle ground. And if there's anything I can do to help you get there, you have my address.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'm going to keep my answers brief. We want the officers to go home by 9 p.m.
I'll try to keep my questions brief also. I want to thank you for having the meeting tonight, especially for the Energy Summit earlier this week, and it was very interesting and
Thank you for being with
I
us.
recommend it to everybody here to keep your eye on when it happens next year and be there. So it's that good.
Every July, when air conditioning bills are their highest, I do an entertainment agency summit.
Good point. In your introductory remarks, you indicated one of your primary interests was national security, as is mine. And in that sense, as you know, my concerns are also about global warming and climate change, as we've discussed before. And I noticed that in the USA Today report on the impact that it's having on the Navy, as far as the Norfolk Station and other places, the ocean sea level rise, and other climate issues that they're having, as projected for the next 35 years, is going to be very, very costly and have an impact on our national security. The second point to that issue was that the Department of Defense, I understand, has declared it as the #1 threat multiplier, and there's going to be some action in Congress, I understand, to defund their ability to look further into how that's going to impact them. For whatever reason, I don't know. And then the third...
Reference the previous remarks on the contractors who spend more money than is necessary. But carry on.
Well, is it being supplanted by some other thing that can help them solve that problem?
Well, help solve the problem of national security.
Of the impact of climate change as a #1 threat. Do you think that that's...
Yeah, we probably disagree on the...
Well, that's not my words, that's the Department of Defense. So
premise.
I'm not taking a stance on that, I'm just saying, I think it's serious, they think it's serious, and you're saying you don't...
Not everyone does.
Okay. Then the third issue is, I know you were interested in sending out a weekly statement on the impact of, or the concern about the viruses that are being spread, and there are others that are happening as a result of climate change, where the temperatures are becoming more favorable and moving north as well, which includes Texas and eventually Oklahoma and others that are very favorable for the habitats for these kinds of disease-carrying vectors, mosquitoes, which includes dengue fever and yellow fever and chikungunya and other things. So all these things, I think, be solved, improved by taking action on doing something about. And I know that this is not the year, this isn't going to happen this year, but I know that you expect to be in Congress again next year, and I hope you are. And you, I hope that you will address in some fashion this, and I strongly recommend carbon fee and dividend. Carbon fee and dividend, as spelled out by Citizens Climate Lobby, for example, but other people support it. And so just ask that you keep that in mind. Thank you.
Very well, thank you. And just for the record, I'm against mosquitoes. I want them to die. Yes, sir.
Congressman, thanks for being here, and appreciate it. At least you get up and talk to us and listen to what we have to say. I'd like to just make a comment about the HSAs. We've had it in our company for like 10 years. The HSA program, Obamacare.
Oh, yes, sure.
And we've got numerous employees now that have 5 figures in their accounts. So if we, like you said, if we stake people with some money and they're consumers, they won't spend it, especially if they get to keep it, and they're going to be very frugal with it. And so it's been over 10 years now. We have numerous people on a 5,000 deductible plan. We kind of graduated to that level that have over 5 figures in there, and they love it. Now, one of the things that pinches us is the lack of competition. So with your plan, if you can erase what I think the insurance companies have created is state lines, that creates competition. In an effort to reduce the cost, we went to self-funding. I don't know how that would work with your thoughts, but there's only one market in Texas. So we're at their mercy.
Yeah.
So the state lines would be of no help for them. But overall, it's been very successful.
Well, that's why I believe in the national market for that catastrophic claim. I recognize that there are people who like to take mandates for coverage on other policies, but if you elect to go into that system. And here's the thing, that's what gets a lot of cares out of that chance and look to review it. But there's a high deductible, there's never been a high deductible program. It's a Bronze plan on policy, right?
Thank you for doing it.
And so my thought was, okay, I don't like it, I didn't vote for it, I don't want it, I want it to go away. But if you've got that high deductible, if you've got that $5,000, $6,000, $6,800 deductible, which is what Blue Cross HMO deductible is this year, why not give people the ability to put into their health savings account at least that amount of money, that $5,000 or $6,800 into their HSA? You cap them at 34 right now, but why not make that equalize those two amounts? And the other thing was when I went into the exchange and bought the Affordable Care Act policy that I could buy in the state of Texas, it was important to me to continue a health savings account. It was difficult. No one on the other end of the phone knew what I was talking about. I said, I want an HSA compatible plan. I'm not criticizing the people at healthcare.gov. They just didn't know. So I would make their lives easier. I would say every plan that's available in the bronze or silver level is HSA compatible by definition. Whatever change we need to make in the tax code, I'll bet it's not a very big expenditure. It's there, done. Move on. Next case. And then the other thing, which is very frustrating to me, is it's easy to set up, your individual IRA at a bank. You go to any one of our banks here in town, and around tax time, say I want to set up an IRA. They'll pull up the chair for you, and have you sit down, get you a bottle of water, and take your money. But to set up a health savings account, oh my gosh, that is really tough. And you end up with a bank in Florida or Washington State. There's just a couple of them that do it. Recently, I got notified by the company that absorbed what Chase HSA had been previously, and now it's called Payflex. And they sent this letter to me yesterday. Oh, by the way, it's a $4 a month charge on your HSA. $4 a month for managing your HSAs. It's a debit card with a PIN. There's no management required on that. So I think there are a lot of things we can do that would make life easier for people. And this is what, I think takes us before the last question. Look, okay, until the end of President Obama's term, his signature law is not going to change. But could we at least stop punishing people who are trying to do the right thing, setting up a high deductible health plan with an associated health savings account, provide a national market for that catastrophic policy? Yeah, I'd love to see it. As I told Speaker Boehner before, Speaker Ryan now, we can do that. We don't have to wait for another president. I think you should be able to sell that to the administration. Look, we're just making your bronze plan work better for more people. And particularly for the 27, 28-year-old, as you pointed out, the time value of money, putting that money away every month, year after year, yeah, it's a substantial amount.
Okay, in an effort to let these people get in, I have one question, and it has to do with the elephant in the room. We've heard Jonathan Gruber step up on Obamacare and admit he lied to us to get that thing passed. They had to lie to us to get it passed. President Obama lied to us to get it passed. Ben Rhodes had to lie to us and deceive the media so that they get the Iran deal done.
Don't let Zeke Emanuel off the hook.
Zeke Emanuel, it's just Clinton, obviously lied to us. Ghazi, it's just one. And look what's going on in the Democratic National Convention. The elephant is in the room and nobody notices it. And the crooked Hillary is right there. The reason Trump is taken off is because he identifies the elephant in the room, the problem, and he's going to come up with solutions. Now he's telling us and we'll see if he does. But you got to identify the problem first. So, Congressman, we just had 5 cops killed here. We had 3 more in Louisiana. There's not enough outrage. That's the establishment. That's the problem. And I'm afraid you're part of it. Are you? Please stand up for us. When these people are when these people are lying to us, Chuck Schumer, he's right there in TV cameras, you know, Peter King, oh, they're, you know, whatever, you know, and even Jim Jordan will get up and say something once in a while, but, you know, I'd like to see you up there, you know, fighting for us.
I started this out with I told you so. Look, there is, the bully pulpit that I have is, I recognize, is fairly limited. Yes, it's big here in Lewisville, but when I go up to D.C., there's 435 members of Congress, 100 senators, everyone competing for whatever television time, cable, and network that is available. I promise you I've never turned down an opportunity. I take what is available to me. I've had people criticize me because they never see them on Sunday shows. They've never asked. And they probably won't, because they're a Republican from the same district in Texas. You know, who cares what he thinks? Let's stick the guy in the tight race, the guy who said something controversial. That's probably not me, but will I stand up for you every day? The answer is yes. Now look, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm running for re-election. I hope to be successful. On the committee on which I serve on Energy and Commerce, there's a vacancy in the health subcommittee chair position. I really would like to be that person next term. I'd like to be the go-to guy, whoever's in the White House, whether it be President Trump or President Clinton. I would like to be the person in charge of writing policy in the Energy and Commerce Committee that then gets voted on the House floor. Put me in the coach, put the ball in my hands in the last 2 minutes. That's what I want to do. That's what I ran for Congress for. I feel like my entire career up to this point has been leading to this time. So, yeah, there are times perhaps I won't be
Louis Gohmert, didn't bother Louis Gohmert. He's up there, he's defending for us. You know, I mean, I understand you have career goals, but at the same time, these people are lying.
It's getting something done.
The hubris is unbelievable. They get in front of the media and just flat out say, we lied to you. What are you going to do about it? Well, what are we going to do about it? You know, the hubris is outrageous.
But the answer has to be...
That's right. That's exactly right. The establishment has got to go.
And you saw it. You saw both on the Democratic side and the Republican side. Whoever expected the 72-year-old socialist to do as well as he did against Hillary Clinton, but he did.
Right.
He did. And what were the people saying? We had enough. None of the above. We don't like any of you. And obviously on Donald Trump's side, on the Republican side, and he was successful. First time a non-political person has received the nomination of a major political party since 2000 in 1952. And it's a remarkable achievement when you stop and think about it. I've got a lot of hope for next year. I think I obviously want a Republican to be in the White House. I want that Republican to be Donald Trump. I can work with him every single day to make things better.
I want to close with just connecting one down, and that is if that's the example we're seeing there, then this is what we get in our culture. A lot of death, a lot of destruction. I think that people are following our leaders' examples. I mean, we can't be silent to deception and backroom deals. We just can't be silent on that.
Have you ever been to a Trump rally? Those folks are not silent. Yeah. I have.
Cruz, been to many Cruz.
I did too. And then when I had the opportunity to go to the Trump rally in Dallas, I did. It's unlike anything I've ever been in before. They made me get up on stage. I didn't want to. They said, Trump's late, you got to go talk. Holy smacks, that's not what I came here to do. So I got up on stage and I said, well, I don't used to be for Cruz. I've never been to anything like this. Everyone stood on their chair and cheered. He used to be for Cruz. Yay! And I said, I just got it from Washington. We just passed a big bill to pay our soldiers. He's going to pay our soldiers. Yay! I mean, the energy in that room was unbelievable. That's what makes me optimistic about the future. People are engaged. Thank you. Yes, sir. Yeah, I told you I wouldn't be political unless I was for vote, so you're the first one to do it for vote. Yes, sir.
Thank you for your time. I'm living in Dallas, Texas for the last 9 years, I can say. And after coming to US in 2007 on my H-1B visa, I lived in Michigan and lived in New Jersey and finally moved to Dallas, Texas, and we never left for the last 8 years. And we very much I would like to thank the hospitality. My kids finished their elementary school, my elder kid, and he's finished Copel High School. And I'm very proud to say, like, and I'm thankful to see that he's going to UT Dallas this August. So we have achieved several things as a person, right, now after coming here. After we came here, we are in the line of immigration for green cards. So my green card was, application for green card was filed in 2012. But if you see, and as per the immigration system today, my immigration file is in category B3. Because of the country-based wait lines made for immigration, I will never see the end of the tunnel. Because currently, people who filed for immigration for green card in 2004 under EB3 are still waiting. I'm in 2012. It's there itself in the 8 years gap, and I'm like 46. So I only have a very less amount of time, and the way the queue is moving, the people who are already lying for the green card, it's not progressing at all. That is because of, I'm not saying the system is wrong, but some adjustments can be done in the current legal system, which can ease up life we are living here. See, the reason why I'm coming here is there's no day going by where I don't think about my students. Either I lose my job, if I lose my job, or if I'm trying to come back, make a job change. It's so complex, just like the tax code, the next highly complex system is immigration. So, once my son reaches 21, in his third year, he is out of my green card file. He should, just like me, he should go back and stand in the line after he finishes education. There may be a lot of stories like me. A lot of people are, because of the backlog, so many people are waiting in the line. There are several reforms out there, and one of them is my friend who brought up HR 213. This is some adjustment we are asking for the legal immigration system. It's a minor adjustment, it's not increase of the numbers. We are not asking the increase of numbers. Slight adjustment in the way you are making the people wait. Who are already here, we are already working here. So my humble request is, earlier, the current administration, in the last 8 years, there's hardly any movement as far as the legal immigration reform is concerned. I totally agree the Republicans stand how it should be addressed, but unfortunately, I think they didn't have enough time to carve out a proper way of reforming the system. So I will request, that's my humble request, myself and my people like me waiting in the line. If there's any opportunity, please consider some reforms to legal immigration system. For example, if I am working for the company, if I work for 6 months in New Jersey, I need to go for a total amendment process, which takes a month. If after the project is over and I'm going to another project in California, I have to file for another amendment, which takes another. I filed in September. I got yesterday. It's taking so much time. So even to move from one project to project, in the last year they introduced the amendment process. Instead, we were looking for some help in the legal immigration system, and guess what? It's getting more. It's becoming more and more complex for us to sustain.
Well, again, if you think you're being treated unfairly by the agency, I'm happy to file a constitutional victory on your behalf. My answer is the same as it was to the other gentleman. I really don't look for anything being out of balance in this calendar year as far as any type of immigration change.
The legal immigration system also, there's nothing on the cards. I'm not talking about
sorry, it's become so toxic. But for the balance of President Obama's time in office, I honestly don't expect there to be any change.
But if there is any opportunity going forward, I will make a humble request to you to consider any reforms for the legal immigration system, which will help us. Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Hi.
Nice to see you and thank you for being here. I'll try to be quick. I have quite a few pages of things, but I'll stick to it. One of them is the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I have a concern about that because of our national sovereignty could be exposed because of that. So I just wondered, what is your feeling about that? Thank you. Very good. I just hope it stays that way.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's passed the House and
No.
it hasn't yet.
No,
Okay.
the Trade Promotion Authority was given to the President by the House and the Senate.
Okay.
And to be perfectly honest, when I first ran into office, something like that, I was probably asked at the House when we what's your position on trade? That we would favorably disposed to the trade. Taxes benefits probably more than any other state from trade. On the other hand, the agreements that we've seen recently, I do remember that the founders set all this up. They said, treaties done by the Senate, 2/3 majority. Technically, we shouldn't even be involved on the House side. The difficulty is getting 2/3 of the Senate to agree on anything, and as a consequence, they went to this fast track authority, started previous presidencies, it's not something President Obama started previous presidencies, and has been utilized. That authority expired when George Bush was president. He asked for it to be renewed, it was declined, and through most of President Obama's term, it was not requested, but here, right towards the end, he did want to get into partnership, part of the final legacy, and he asked for a trade promotion authority. I thought it was a bad idea for many of the reasons that you articulated. The accompanying trade and services agreements where you're giving up the ability to go to the United States court and have to be heard in an international tribunal doesn't seem like a good idea for us to be involved in. So for all those reasons, I opposed trade promotion authority last year, in I think it was May of last year, when that vote was held, but it did pass. TPP is the trade agreement that was then negotiated under that fast track authority that was given to the president. And you recall and remember originally they said, oh, it's all in secret, you can't see it. I actually had to apply for special dispensation to go down and read the agreement. I went down several times, very difficult reading, hard to understand. For someone with my background, I'll admit I probably wasn't up to the task. After the Trade Promotion Authority was given, then the documents were no longer secret. They actually ballooned from whatever it was, 600 pages to 6,000 pages. It's ridiculous how big this thing is. No one can understand it. No one can really know what's in there. I would be very, very reluctant to see us do anything. Obviously, the fear is that at that point between Election Day and the start of the new Congress, the so-called lame-duck session, someone will try to push this thing through. I can do everything I can to stop it.
I think a lot of people don't realize that that does affect their sovereignty. And also, there could be other nations added, and there could be some very anti-American nations added. So it's just, I think that goes into a security concern as well. That would be great. I mean, we want trade, yeah, I would agree. And then, I mean, just one other thing. It just seems like that the IRS, the Department of Justice, the EPA, I mean, the Supreme Court is not it's not I mean, this part is a federal government, but it just seems like there's so much unconstitutionality in all these, and politicization. I mean, just like the IRS and the Department of Justice and, the FBI. I mean, sometimes it's just really overwhelming to sit back and see all this stuff that's happening and what's happening in our country, where, I mean, we had all these people
seem too big. Really, to me, you've identified why that is problematic. And it's at the level of the federal agency. And yes, we're the legislative branch. The administration is then supposed to enact the laws that we pass. But then things go back to the agencies, and then the rules get written, and then perhaps a period of public comment unless they go to an interim rule, and they avoid that period of public comment, and then the rule is published, and then we all have to live under the rule. There is, the last two Congresses, there has been legislation that I've favored and I voted for that called the REINS Act that said any time an agency produces a rule that has a net effect of $100 million in the economy, then we have to vote on it again. Up or down, just like the conference report, yes or no, don't get to amend it, but it has to come back to Congress for a vote before it's enacted. And I think that is a sensible thing that should happen. Yes, it's going to be difficult to win on down the sides of the federal agencies. Yeah, probably not going to be fast enough for my HSA friends, but that is one thing that could begin to pull that power back out of the agency level, which really is unaccountable when you get right down to it. Yes, you've got a presidential election, you've got a choice on the ballot, but really, a lot of these folks are career, they're there forever. After the nuclear holocaust, they'll still be there. They never go away. So I get what you're saying. Now, one of the things that get the headlines, we passed out of the Energy and Commerce Committee, started my subcommittee, went through the Energy and Commerce Committee right before we left. First time that the FTC has come under any regulatory authority in 30 years. And they hollered Billy Katie when we did it. But I still don't know if we'll be successful. But things like cutting down the time for consent decree, we don't require them to do an economic impact analysis of their rulings, but if they do one, we want them to show their work. And once they start an inquiry, they have a certain time period. Not that they have to conclude the inquiry, but they can't just let it sit for month after month after month while some poor business twists in the wind while they're wondering what the Federal Trade Commission is going to do to them. I grant you it's a small step, but it has been taken in 30 years, and we did it a couple of weeks ago. No headlines for it, no interviews, but it was, I wanted you to know because that was one effort to sort of rein in something at the agency level. We need to do a lot more, there's no question about it.
Yeah, well, thank you for what you do.
Yes, sir. Okay, go ahead.
How you doing, sir?
Good.
Brandon Chase McGee. Sorry, I ran out on your Monday night.
I wanted you to continue your productive activities. It was important to me that you do what you needed to do the other night.
Well, I'm literally going to need a congressional letter of approval as to why I'm late for work tonight. So we'll talk about that later. My question is deeply personal to me. Again, going along with my line of questioning on Monday night, according to the Dallas Morning News, you're going to have the largest number of minority voters expected to in your district ever. You're representing us all. I asked you, did you understand some of the issues that were facing minority communities? And you said yes. So we talked about education and healthcare, correct? Or education and economics?
Education, employment, and economic development.
Okay, I'd like to ask you about healthcare tonight. We are probably not going to substantively agree on the abortion issue, so I'm not going to touch it. I'm not concerned with what the 4%, what estimated 4% of what Planned Parenthood does. But what I am concerned with is what the 96% does. You voted to, like many others, to defund Planned Parenthood, yes?
Yeah, there's plenty of other places those services can be provided. In the state of Texas.
Okay, if you don't mind, I'd like for you to articulate where those places are.
Someone used to provide those services.
And that's why I want you to speak to it.
Why do I have to fund my competition with my tax dollar on a very basic level? Why? Why is that a good idea? Why is that economic model even one that's up for discussion? Look, the state of Texas has dedicated, and Senator Jay Nelson from this area was sort of one who spearheaded that and said, look, there are certain basic services that we are going to provide our women in Texas, but they're not going to be provided if they're the providers. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. But I also know there are options. And, you know, I don't want to get too far into the details of it, but there are probably better options for people.
My wife went to school at UNT, as did I, as did you. If you get sick on the college campus, the waiting list is a mile long to go to the UNC Health Sciences Center. But you can go right down the road to 35 and 288, walk right in, wait 10 minutes, get whatever you need at the Planned Parenthood. What other options are there available?
Well, again, there are
cost effective, for like a college student, for example.
Well, there are, and again,
I understand there are.
I used to run a practice like that.
Yes, sir.
I would make arrangements with people who said, look, I don't necessarily have the insurance or the cash. Will you work with me? Absolutely. We did it every day, from start to finish. I think there are better providers, and again, I don't want to get into the who's the better practitioner, but I think there are better options, and I'm okay with what the state of Texas did. I'm okay with what King Nelson did in trying to set up these alternative service centers, and for my money, we shouldn't be funding them.
I agree 100%. Last time. Can you just tell me, give me one? Help me out, give me one. What's the better option? Where could I go?
Well, we talked about this the other night, and I referenced
do I need to go to the emergency room and sit for 30 minutes?
No,
maybe, or longer.
Number one, you've got, if you're truly someone who's got no other place to go, Christian Community Action has provided services for a number of years. All they require is that you not have an ability to pay. They don't want to see anyone with insurance. They don't want to compete with someone who's in practice. They want to be there for someone who has no other choice. You have the community clinic in Denton. Dr. Phil Massarelli and his wife has run that for a number of years. They work on a sliding scale. They work off some grant funding that they have. You have a federal qualified health center. You and I talked about this the other night. There's one in Denton at where the old Westgate Hospital used to be. I also worked with Commissioner Brooks to get one up and running in the city of Fort Worth when I had a larger footprint in Tarrant County. Look, Tarrant County had one of the highest infant mortality rates in not just in the country, the world. And I know it weighed very heavily on my mind, as it did Commissioner Brooks, even though we were in different political parties. We worked hard because in Tarrant County, they've got no Peter Smith. So can't say it's access that's a problem. They've got a county-funded hospital. Anybody can go to it any hour of the day or night. That's their right to go. It was utilization. And the problem with utilization was there wasn't a clinic where the people were. And we made sure that happened. So, yeah, to answer your question, I have worked on that. The VA hospital down in Fort Worth, I think we talked about this the other night. Huge VA facility. Up and running in 5 years' time. Unheard of. And quite honestly, I'll credit Eric standing behind you, and Eric and other people on the staff worked very, very hard with the VA Cares Commission. They did it a different way. It wasn't the congressional appropriation to buy bricks and mortar and build a clinic. It was, let's partner with the developer. Request for proposals went out. Developer showed up, said if you'll guarantee the lease, I'll front the money and build the building. They did. They built it to VA specs. 5 years from groundbreaking to ribbon cutting. Unheard of in the VA system. Again, I will submit this to you. And, arguably, the demographics are changing, but it has done nothing but change since I moved here in the 1950s. Nothing but change. It has grown every year. Look, I got to put my credentials in front of the voters. Twice in every congressional term. Once in the primary and once in the general election. For the most part, they think I'm doing okay. So I'm going to keep doing it.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate you.
All right. Well, thank everyone for being here. I need to do a couple of things before we wrap up. But we have a number of summer interns who are working for you, working in the district office. Their pay is not great. Well, we actually don't get paid. So just give them a little bit of recognition. Olivia Stedman, who's at Lindenwood University in St. Charles, Missouri. Greg Klein at Texas A&M University. Karen Alday at the University of North Texas, our school. Ethan Lightfoot at Sam Houston State University, and Andrew Urich at Hardin-Simmons University. Andrew, I've always looked up to. And then just a number of the staff there, of course, the ones who work in the district office, Eric Witt, I referenced a number of people are down from the Washington office for this first week of the work period. Cummings Strickland, who's my chief of staff, Billy, wanted to come to the town hall tonight. She thought it was important. Michael Yancey, who is the one who basically logs in and answers your letters. There's Michael Yancey back there. Decker, who is my deputy chief of staff, legislative assistant, rules committee associate, CMP, fill-in, and just all around good guy in the office, and never fails to give me perfect advice. Laura Peavy, who is backup communications director and staff assistant in the Washington office. Eric Wood, you all know, Robin Vaughn is the deputy district director. Robin is standing back there, and she also does the Service Academy nominations. We would be lost without her. Melanie Torres, I saw Melanie over there at the side. Constituent Service Director for the Lighthouse Office. Jane Loomis, also here, is the Constituent Service. Jane in fact, Constituent Service. Dylan Sharp, who signed you in this evening. Oh, there's Joan at the back. Thank you, Joan, for being with me. I always say Joan's been with me since year school the first time, and then I'm told I'm about to say that. But Joan's been at my side for a long time, so thank you, Joan, for being here. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate the interaction. Democracy is a full participatory sport. I hope I've answered your questions honestly, and not always to your liking, and that's what I will try to do. So thank you very much.